early in my years here. I came on board in June 1970, and Roe against Wade was decided in January 1973. It is a case that is controversial, that is constantly under scrutiny, and there is a question, I suppose, whether it ever will cease to be under scrutiny.
That was Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun with a statement about the landmark abortion case, actually more like it, an understatement, that probably all sides of the abortion debate can agree on. It's from an oral history he taped in 1995, 4 years before he died. In this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly, against the backdrop of Roe v. Wade once again under intense scrutiny, we look back at Justice Blackmun, his own words, and the opinion he wrote that remains the focus of endless news and intense politics 50 years later. On April 14, 1970, Republican President Richard Nixon nominated Harry Blackmun, a 61-year-old Court of Appeals judge from Minnesota, to the Supreme Court. In this clip from his 1995 oral history, Justice Blackmun remembers the day news came out about his nomination. One historical note, you'll hear him mention his membership in the Cosmos Club in Washington, D.C. When Blackmun was a member, only men were allowed in. It wasn't until 1988 that the Cosmos Club dropped its 110-year-old men-only policy and admitted its first women members.
I had stayed at the Cosmos Club when I was down there, and the media never found out where I was, although the FBI did. But
were you a member of the Cosmos Club at that point?
I was a non-resident member of the Cosmos Club. A number of us, it goes back to my Mayo days, actually. It was a good place to stay, at less expensive than Washington hotels and more isolated and private. But anyway, I was finally dropped off there, and I was hoping that they'd take me out to the airport. I had I think a 5 o'clock plane or something, but they didn't. They just dropped me at the Cosmos Club. So I grabbed my bag and scrounged for a cab. Fortunately found one. They're not easy to get out there. And got to the airport just in time, and went in, sat down on an aisle seat back in the steerage. Pretty soon I was putting my bag underneath the seat in front of me, and a couple of feet came up, stopped right by me, but looked on the other side. And the occupant of the seat on the other side said to the man standing there, "Who is this guy Blackmun whose photograph is in today's paper?" And the answer was, "Oh, he's just another old conservative." And here I was underneath. I could tell who it was. And what do? Do I stay underneath, or do I make my presence known? And I finally pulled on his trouser leg and said, "Walter, I'm here. Happen to be Senator Mondale."
On May 12, 1970, less than a month after his nomination, the Senate confirmed Harry Blackmun to the Supreme Court. The vote was unanimous, 94 yes, 0 no's. The next year, Roe v. Wade. The landmark abortion case was first argued on December 13, 1971. It was argued again on October 11, 1972. The case was decided on January 22, 1973. In a 7-2 vote, the court ruled that a woman's right to an abortion fell within the right to privacy protected by the 14th Amendment. The ruling gave a woman total autonomy over her pregnancy during the first trimester and defined different levels of state interest for the second and third trimesters. Here's the opening story on the CBS Evening News, January 22, 1973, the night the ruling was announced. Walter Cronkite reporting.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
Justice Harry Blackmun wrote the majority opinion. Many others wrote to him. He got mail, lots of it. Let's return to his 1995 oral history.
On that very day, however, that is January 22, 1973, Lyndon B. Johnson died, and news of the abortion cases was distinctly secondary. A few days later, however, the roof fell in. The mail to the court proved to be the greatest in its history on a specific case or pair of cases. The record theretofore had been held by the prayer in the schools case. I well recall officers in the court standing at their posts, sorting mail into 9 separate receptacles. I suspect that to date I've received over 70,000 letters about Roe. I have read nearly all of them, much to the dismay of Lewis Powell. He feels I should not subject myself to that stress. Letters on the subject still come in.
2 decades after Roe v. Wade, another milestone abortion case, Planned Parenthood versus Casey. On June 29, 1992, the U.S. Supreme Court reaffirmed the right to have an abortion that was established in Roe v. Wade, but opened the door for more restrictions on abortion access. Justice Blackmun was still on the court when the 1992 case was argued. Pennsylvania Attorney General Ernest Priate was just a few words into his opening statement when Justice Blackmun, then 83 years old, interrupted with a pointed question about the opinion he wrote.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court, this court granted certiorari on the question of whether 5 sections of our Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act are constitutional. It is the position of Pennsylvania that each of the 5 provisions is constitutional under the analysis that was applied by this court in Webster. Further, Roe v. Wade need not be revisited by this court except to reaffirm that Roe did not establish an absolute right to abortion on demand, but rather a limited right, subject to reasonable state regulations designed to serve important and legitimate state interests.
Mr. Attorney General, I'm not so sure that's so important. Roe itself said that.
That's correct.
This does not provide for abortion on demand. Have you read Roe?
Yes, I have.
Thank you.
Have you read Roe? Tough stuff. 2 years after the Planned Parenthood case, Justice Blackmun announced his retirement. On April 6, 1994, President Bill Clinton and Justice Blackmun appeared together in a press conference. A reporter asked about Roe v. Wade.
Could you say a few words about the decision in Roe versus Wade and about why you think it's been important for women in this country, your continued commitment to it, and where you think the court might be headed on it?
Well, I didn't come in here to indulge in a question and answer session, but I'll try to answer that. Roe against Wade hit me early in my tenure on the Supreme Court, and people forget that it was a 7-2 decision. They always typify it as a Blackmun opinion, but I'll say what I've said many times publicly. I think it was right in 1973, and I think it was right today. It's a step that had to be taken as we go down the road toward the full emancipation of women.
Take one more question.
On May 22, 1995, the National Abortion and Reproductive Rights Action League held a tribute for Justice Blackmun. He discussed his famous opinion.
People so often ask me, you've been around an awfully long time, you've written a lot of opinions. Aren't there some you would write differently today? And what about Roe against Wade? Would you write it that way again? So far as Roe against Wade is concerned, of course I'd write it exactly that way. There's one little half paragraph in it I might eliminate, but that went in at the request of another justice, and against my better judgment, I let it stay. But if I had it to do over again, I'd take those few sentences out and let the rest stay, and we'd carry on.
Harry Blackmun died March 4, 1999. 7 years earlier, he considered his legacy. On August 29, 1992, addressing the Aspen Institute, he acknowledged what case he would, as you'll hear him say, take to his grave.
I apologize to you when I say this, but I never thought that I, having grown up in a lower middle class neighborhood in the city of St. Paul, would ever find myself out there battling the tremendous forces that are arrayed on one side of the controversy against the tremendous sources on the other side. But it's exciting, and that is what life has done to me, and in a way I'll take Roe against Wade to my grave. But I told some of my academic friends that, look, I have written a couple of antitrust cases, I've written a lot of tax cases, and just relieve me of Roe against Wade once in a while.
In 1994, President Clinton picked Stephen Breyer to replace Harry Blackmun on the Supreme Court. Justice Breyer spoke at Justice Blackmun's memorial service at the National Cathedral on May 9, 1999. Breyer's words about Blackmun's legacy sound similar to what Blackmun himself said.
His legacy obviously includes Roe versus Wade. Harry said, "We all pick up tabs. I'll carry that one to my grave." But momentous as that decision was, it hardly captures the full range of Harry's Supreme Court accomplishments. These accomplishments reveal a vision, a conscientious, humane judicial vision, which he applied in one area of the law after another. I mention this range of judicial work, which spans the full body of the law from antitrust to interstate taxation, because it leads us back to Harry Blackmun, the man.
Now Justice Breyer is retiring, replaced by President Joe Biden's pick for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Blackmun was right about how he would be remembered foremost for his famous opinion in Roe v. Wade, but he was wrong in another prediction about Roe v. Wade, made during his oral history.
We're in a position to carry on, get on to other things now. Justice Brown against Board of Education is an accepted fact of life, although I suppose not entirely heeded everywhere. I think Roe against Wade probably is ready to fade into the background, and we can go on to other subjects.
One piece of evidence proving that prediction wrong, the subject of this very podcast, is Roe v. Wade. That faulty view of the future also was held by a former clerk to Harry Blackmun on the Supreme Court, current Senator Richard Blumenthal. The Connecticut Democrat was Blackmun's clerk the year after the justice wrote the majority opinion in Roe v. Wade. Here's Richard Blumenthal on the Senate floor, May 23, 2019.
When I worked for Justice Blackmun, I remember we thought at the time, all done, all settled, no more issues with a woman's right to reproductive rights. Roe v. Wade was the decisive opinion of the United States Supreme Court, the law of the land, then and thereafter. Here we are, decades later, still fighting this needless and senseless battle for a woman's right to privacy and freedom.
And now a bonus clip. Here's one person you might not have expected to have doubts and reservations about the decision Roe v. Wade, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Here's what she said during her July 21, 1993 nomination hearing to be a justice on the Supreme Court.
Once the states begin to change, then it takes a while, but eventually most of them move in the direction of change. There was the one thing that one can say for sure. There was a massive attack on Roe v. Wade. It was a single target to hit at. I think two things happened. One is that a movement that had been very vigorous became relaxed, slightly relaxed, didn't entirely go home, but it wasn't as vigorous as it had been, or that it might have been, were it not that the court seemed to have taken care of the problem. So one thing is one side seemed to relax its energy while the other side had a single target around which to rally. But that's my what if, and I could be wrong about that. My view was that the people would have accepted, would have expressed themselves in an enduring way on this question. And as I said, this is a matter of speculation. This is my view of what if. Other people can have a different view.
Justice Ginsburg served less than a year on the court with Justice Blackmun. That's it for this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly. A reminder, you could do your own searches in the C-SPAN video library. Look up more coverage of Roe v. Wade. Look up other Supreme Court justices. Look up other landmark cases. Just go to cspan.org and use the search bar on top. All for free. Thanks for listening, and happy searching.